When the words coming out of your mouth are true and you believe what you're saying, that's authenticity. Hey, thanks for tuning into my show. I'm the co-owner of Suprahuman, and we're all about helping you become your best self. We've helped thousands of people physically transform. If you want to take the mystery of how to achieve your best body, get a meal plan completely customized to your needs for free. Go to superhumandiet.com, that's SUPRA humandiet.com, and we'll deliver the plan directly to your inbox. Hello, and welcome to another episode. If it's your first time, I always like to welcome you and thank you for listening and giving this show, this podcast, a shot. I really appreciate it because there's so many other things you could be doing with your time. So thank you for listening. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much as well. My hope is that you're always getting value out of these shows. So today, what are we going to talk about? First of all, I just want to be transparent that a little over a month ago, I said that I was completely done with what? My nails, getting my nails done. I don't know about you. I know I have a few male listeners, so you may not relate to this, but when it comes to women, there's this love-hate relationship I have with getting my nails done. And so I swear this happens every year where I'm like, I am so done with getting my nails done because I hate the way nail salons smell. And then oftentimes I just get really antsy sitting there doing nothing, or what feels like I'm doing nothing, right? Sitting in the chair, getting the nails done, getting my feet done. And so I said, that's it. I'm done with the nails. Plus, it's got all the bad chemicals, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? I even went on vacation, by the way, without getting my nails done. How about that one? We just got back from Cabo to celebrate my husband's 40th birthday. It was a blast. I am feeling a little less than optimal because we ate some really good food and then we overate, probably overconsumed on the alcohol. We had a great time. But here's my point. Man, do you feel the difference between optimal and not so optimal in terms of what you're consuming, whether it's just too much food because you're stressing the digestive system when you do that, or putting pollutants like alcohol into your body and too much of it. So anyway, we had a great time. I get back. It's Mother's Day on Sunday. So by the way, I hope everybody had an amazing Mother's Day. And today's topic is actually about mothers. So stick around. And if you're not a mom, that's okay. I think you'll get a lot of insight out of this episode as well, because I know more and more women are shying away from becoming moms or even choosing to become moms because of some of the narratives out there around motherhood. And I want to dive deep into that. But let's get back to my nails, right? I ended up getting my nails done on Mother's Day. So I'm like, you know what? I've been on vacation with my husband and a few other couples, and I haven't had any alone time. So I think I'll go do this alone time thing at the salon and sit and do nothing. And I was like, oh, that's why I get them done sometimes. But more importantly, I just did not feel like myself without them. So if you're watching this show, because I've got this show on YouTube, then you'll see I'm flashing my nails around. I ended up getting the acrylics, I know. And the tips are metallic turquoise. Hot. Turquoise is my favorite color, by the way. But, you know, when you age, I don't know about you ladies, but it's like, man, I can see the age in my hands. Like, they got all, like, wrinkly. And so when you have the little stubs for your nails, it's like, man, my hands look really old. So anyway, got my nails done. Here I am. And we'll see how long I last before I throw another fit about having to get my nails done every 4 weeks or whatever. So here is my question to you. And we're going to dive right into the episode now. So thanks for hanging on. I got a couple of questions, two very important questions. One is, are your beliefs around motherhood stopping you from pursuing your highest self? And the piggyback question to that is, if I reframe it, are you using motherhood as an excuse to stop yourself from becoming your best self? Okay, I'm going to answer that question, both of those questions for you. Yes and yes. Yes and yes. And so I'm constantly having to rewire my beliefs or ask myself what it is that I'm believing around the narrative of motherhood that I think is stopping me from doing ABC. Could be anything, right? And I'm constantly questioning my beliefs and then wanting to create new beliefs so that I can continue to pursue my highest self. And I was on Instagram this morning, which is not necessarily always a good thing. And I'm reading through a lot of the people I follow, and it's I don't even know how I'm following half the people I do, because when I started my Instagram account, it was back in my news days. And so I've had that account for so long now. And so I'm following all these random people, but I'm following this one woman, and I don't recall her name. Even if I had it, I wouldn't call her out in that way. But it caught my attention. And here's what her post said, quote, and here's the thing about social media and clips. You're not getting all the context. So sometimes we really, really, really misunderstand each other. And I'm going to dive into that too. But here's what she said, quote, I'm not an almond mom. I'm a dairy mom. I was I didn't know there were almond moms and dairy moms. Okay, I'm interested. And I was that's catchy. She knows headlines. And so the post went on to say something else. And then in the comment section, she wrote, quote, an almond mom is the mom who barely eats, what? And always diets and tells her kids to watch their weight all the time. End quote. Holy crap, that is a generalization if I ever heard one. Oh, I didn't know. Do we have data on almond moms? So I think she's referring to mothers who drink almond milk and give their kids almond milk versus the dairy moms. I don't know. I think it's such a generalization. And I had this epiphany as I was reading that. And of course, the first thing I'm thinking in my head, by the way, because, I co-own the company Superhuman, and we help men and women with their nutrition and fitness and really educate them about consumption and macronutrients and how you can achieve an optimal body, a good-looking body that also is optimal and functions for you to help you, have energy and feel good. And we kind of try to dismantle all the diet industry talk around it. But I had this epiphany that our narrative around motherhood, particularly what type, and when I say type, I'm saying insert a label like dairy mom, almond mom. These are all labels, right? I'm a dairy mom. I'm an almond mom. I don't even know what that means. I'm a rancher mom. I'm a homeschooling mom. So we use labels to describe ourselves to others. And I think it's kind of a form of virtue signaling as well, by the way. And what this leads us women to do is constantly judge ourselves about whether we're doing motherhood right. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I think along with that judgment of ourselves and others, so if we're judging ourselves, it's because we judge others, is what creates this famous terminology and that hashtag mom guilt. And I talk to so many moms. I'm like, how do you handle mom guilt? And I really want to talk about mom guilt, and particularly, are our beliefs around motherhood stopping us from pursuing our highest self? And what does our highest self look like? And I think our highest self looks different to everyone. And we're all trying to figure out, what kind of mom do I want to be? Do I want to be the homestead mom? And I went through this, by the way, last year. I'm like, you know what? If only I had a vegetable garden, I think that would make me a better mom. And so I ended up getting a vegetable garden. Now, I didn't actually go pursue the education of figuring out how to plant a vegetable garden in Nineveh-like fashion. I hire someone to do the vegetable garden for me. And I'm like, got a vegetable garden. I'm a better mom now. No. I mean, we love watering the tomatoes together. So it's cute. And I love making homemade salsa from it. That's about all we can do here in Arizona. Honestly, I don't know what you can grow in Arizona. Probably a lot. But here's my point. I didn't really educate myself. I just thought, hey, if I could just be like a ranch mom, I'd be a great mom. Okay, I'll get a vegetable garden. You see where I'm going with this? And do you see where I'm going with this post about this Instagram influencer who says, I'm not an almond mom, I'm a dairy mom. So it's like virtue signaling that being a dairy mom is better than being an almond mom, because the almond mom always diets, and dieting is a problem, and telling your kids to watch their weight is a problem. You're a bad mom, I'm a good mom. So that's why I say it's the judgment of ourselves and others what creates, I think, mom guilt. And so I actually want to read you a couple of things that I put on my Instagram that got absolutely no engagement, which is weird. I'm like, I don't understand who's following me on Instagram, why the algorithm doesn't want me to talk about mom guilt. Let's have this conversation because I think it's an important one. But I did a series of videos, and I talked about, what does it mean to be a great mother? And, what I realized is it took me a long time to believe the statement, I am a great mother, about myself. And some days I still struggle. Did I do it right? Am I doing it right? By the way, what is right? You go from, how do I do this, newborn thing, which is really all about survival. You're like in survival mode at that phase, to, am I doing a good job at this as they get older? So I recall during the newborn phase, I'm like, am I doing this right? Am I changing the diaper right? Am I breastfeeding correctly? Like, am I doing everything right? And you're questioning yourself because it's like the first time you've done everything, and everyone's telling, oh, this is all going to come so naturally to you, which I think is, there are some things that are natural about motherhood, like, getting pregnant, giving birth, and even giving birth is a different experience for so many people. Breastfeeding is easy, and it's not easy for other women, right? So to say, oh, it's all natural, and then you expect it to feel also natural, and then some parts of motherhood don't feel natural because you were a mom before you gave birth, right? So anyway, throughout my continued journey of motherhood, I have oscillated between a range of emotions and questions about how I show up. Like, am I working too much? Should I stay home? Should I have a homestead? Should I homeschool? Should I send her to public school? Should I send her to private school? On and on and on and on. Do you think men ever go through what I call these types of ruminations? Maybe that's why women overthink and have higher levels of anxiety, especially as mothers. All of a sudden, you're not just thinking about yourself, you're thinking about another human, and you're like, oh my gosh, raising myself or helping myself thrive is one thing. Helping another being? Wow, that's a lot of pressure. Like, I want to do it right. I want to make sure I don't mess up my kids. All right, that's what we're all thinking. And so I think once I shut off all the noise from the outside world, though, the complexity around that question, what makes a great mother, became a lot more simple. Is your child or your children loved? Do they feel safe with you? Are they thriving in the environment that you've created? Yes, and yes. Well, then whether you've got a farm with chickens or run a business or put them in private or public school is kind of irrelevant, right? So instead of trying to figure out whether we're doing it right, I'm starting to focus on being. Like, who am I as a parent? How do I show up? And my question is like, what about you? Another thing I dove into on Instagram was, this whole notion around mom guilt, and I'm only 5 years into being a mother, and I've got the one, and I've talked to so many moms about this, so I know that I'm not alone. But the questions I want to ask you is, what do you specifically feel guilty about? How do you overcome that guilt? Why does mom guilt even exist? Are we actually taught mom guilt? Or is mom guilt natural? All the things, all the questions for you over here. And another one I dove into, because I think this is where women really struggle, and I've personally struggled, is, can, quote, successful women be great mothers too? Like, not an or, but an and. A lot of us operate with ors in our reality. Like, either I'm a successful woman or a great mother. What about I'm a successful woman and a great mother? So I'm working on the ands. And my question was, can money making, hustling, corporate ladder climbing, boss, babe, chicks, whatever label you want to throw at this, right? Be mothers in general and be great mothers at that. And why are more and more women not? Thanks for tuning into my show. I'm the founder of Scale Ventures and want to invite you to learn more about how we help high-achieving men and women just like you. As a shareholder and owner of multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses, find out if you qualify and get on my wait list at scaleventures.com. That's spelled SKAYLE ventures.com. Or are they choosing not to have kids, because the juggle as a working mom is real. And some days I've asked myself, man, is it worth it? And by worth it, is it worth staying in the workforce? Because I personally became a late blooming mom. Although in today's modern world, having kids in your early 20s is now like, what? That's a young mom, right? More and more women are waiting until their 30s and even beyond because their lifespan is longer than it used to be. And I've started to kind of reframe what it means to be a great mother. Like I said, it's not cleaning. Is it? Is that what makes us a great mom? Like cleaning, doing laundry? It's not cooking, although recently, like a new thing I've been doing is making everyone breakfast in the morning. It's this new routine and I love it and I enjoy it because it helps me feel like I'm taking care of the people I love. But for me, motherhood is not a set of tasks. And the reality is that men don't have to make the same considerations that we do as women when it comes to parenthood because we are different biologically. And yet we can create a partnership, I think, with fathers that makes motherhood the rewarding experience that it is supposed to be. And I think in today's world, women are shying away from becoming moms because, more and more men are no longer providers. We've kind of switched the role where women are becoming providers. So I would ask, is that problematic or no? Or does everybody just do what works best for them? Women are feeling the pressure and expectation to do it all. I mean, this is facts, guys, gals. Working women who are mothers do more than men. And study after study finds this because what we're doing as working women is we're adopting the traditional role. Because we're like, I want to make sure I show up as that traditional mom and the modern mom. And now you're doing 2x of what dad's doing, which his role has never had to shift really since the beginning of time, which is showing up as dad and being the provider. Although we're seeing more things shift because we're having these conversations. And then the last thing is many mothers feel a loss of identity. Like, how do we help moms find their new selves after such a massive shift in their lives? Because regardless of wanting to become a mom, I've always wanted to become a mother, it's still a massive identity shift. And how do you find your new self outside of that? Because you're allowed to have an identity outside of that. And oftentimes as women, we're like, I'm a mother. And then that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. And we're encouraged to just adopt that whole thing in that period of our lives or in that season of our lives. That I meet so many women who did stay home and say, man, I had a really, really rough time once the kids grew up. And I'm like, now what do I do? And so how do we manage this? How do we balance it? How do we, become and how do we become great moms and continually progress and become our best selves? And in parallel, also pursue the things that we enjoy and that are going to help us become our best selves. And so how do we overcome all this noise in my mind and in your mind? For me, it's about rewriting the narrative around motherhood. And so the 3 things, I'm going to get to a point here, like what are 3 things that I'm doing right now to help myself that I hope is going to help you too and open up the conversation. I want this episode to be a conversation with you. And so I would love to hear from you. But here are 3 things that I'm doing right now to help myself, girlfriend. Number 1, letting go of judging the dairy mom or the almond mom. When I stop judging other moms, I relinquish judging myself. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. I'm not saying I'm never, ever, ever going to judge someone else because that means I would stop judging myself altogether, but I can progress and try to stop judging how this mom is doing it versus how this mom is doing it. And I'm not saying I'm judging a mom like, oh, she's not doing it right. Like, the judgment is more of why am I not doing it like that? Should I be doing it like that? So by judging or questioning how other moms are doing it, I'm really judging myself, is what it is. So when Dairy Mom is judging Almond Mom, she's really judging herself as the Dairy Mom. Think about it, right? So when I stop judging other moms, I relinquish judging myself. Judgment, and this is just through my own analyzation, guys, comes from comparing ourselves. It's like, where did I get the idea of being a homestead mom or wanting to have a ranch and convincing myself that doing it that way is the better way, or that homeschool is the better way? It's all the noise on social media. It's everybody trying to convince each other that their way is the better way, which judgment, virtue signaling, we all want to feel like we're the best and we're doing it the best. A judgment comes from comparing ourselves, and comparing ourselves is a result of caring way too much about what others think about the way we do life, and in this case, motherhood. Like, maybe we care a little too much about what our own moms think about the way we're doing motherhood, or even the way our mother-in-law may be thinking about the way that we do motherhood. And really, it's just a projection of how we feel about ourselves. So our mother-in-laws or our mothers may not even be judging us, but we're thinking and we're creating these narratives in our head that we never verbalize. And really, they're the narratives about ourselves, or the judgment about ourselves. And so the 3 things I'm doing: letting go of judgment. All right, that's fine. You're a dairy mom. Maybe I'm an almond mom. I'm not. I'm actually a dairy mom. I drink dairy. There was a time I drank almond milk, and I don't think it was because I was a dieting mom. I never tell my kid to eat everything on their plate. And why don't I do that? Because so I have a daughter that actually sometimes eats everything on her plate and sometimes she doesn't. So when she says she's full, I was like, great job eating. Even if she didn't eat very much, I just really do my best not to force feed her, because when I was growing up, you know, and I'm sure this was so common back in this generation, it was like, finish everything on your plate. Don't be wasteful, right? And so what you end up doing is you lose the intuition of listening to your hunger signals, and then you create a behavior that no matter what's on your plate, you need to finish everything. And I still struggle with that today. I'm like, I need to finish everything on my plate. And so what happens is you overconsume as a result, instead of just listening to the hunger cues of your body, because you don't need as much food as you think you do. I know Dairy Mom would try to convince you otherwise. Just kidding. But you don't need as much food as you think you do. And especially with kids, it's like they'll eat when they're hungry, right? And so we can encourage them to eat healthy foods and all of this, yada, yada. But I don't try to like overstuff my kid. And I certainly am very conscientious about the way I talk about myself, my weight. I get on the scale. My daughter sees me get on the scale, and I don't say anything out loud. So I'll step on the scale and I'll just look at it and I'm like, cool. You know, I don't say one thing. I don't want her to really know what dieting is at this age, obviously. But because she sees me step on the scale, I'm using that as a measurement for myself. She steps on the scale and she's like, it says 4.4. I'm like, good job. So I'm creating a very positive association with the scale with her. And in this case, like, the more she's weighing as she's growing, the better. So I'm saying good job. So what is my point here? Letting go of judgment. Maybe other moms don't step on the scale in front of their kids. That's fine. Maybe you're going to judge me because I do that. Fine. But what I'm telling you is, if you let go of judgment, and the judgment comes from being triggered and resolving your triggers around that judgment, the more you relinquish judging yourself. And then judgment comes from comparing ourselves. So it's like, if you're going to be on social media, if you're going to be online, you're going to be looking at all this content, you're going to be following all these moms because you want that information, you've got to be able to create the separation of comparing yourself. It's like, oh, that's interesting. She feeds her kid dairy. I wonder why. So coming at that information from a place of curiosity rather than comparison is going to help you a lot more and say, you know what? I may consider that down the road. Right now, it's not for me. Right now, having a ranch, probably not really fitting into our lifestyle. Is that really what I want? Let's be real about our goals for our family right now. Probably not. So, hey, don't put pressure on myself to have a vegetable garden. I like my vegetable garden, though. And then, like I said, comparing ourselves because we care way too much about what other people think about us. And you got to just let that go, because I think the comparison really stops us from flourishing and becoming unique as mothers. Like, nobody has the same type of mom. I've got friends who are like, oh, I remember my mom, she always baked cookies. I'm like, I don't bake cookies. I buy the cookies pre-made, and then we put them on the pan and we bake them. And my daughter's like, let's bake cookies. I'm like, let's do that. There's other things we do, but I'm not really the baker mom. So what? Who cares, right? And what I found helpful was me writing things out and listing all the things that make me a great mom. And I am veering away from tasks like, well, I'm a great mom because I cook. I'm a great mom because I clean. I'm a great mom because I keep my kid alive. I mean, these are all the basics, right? Am I present? Am I patient? Am I loving? I've narrowed it down to those things. When we've gotten beyond, is my child safe? Is she surviving? I get into the thriving. Am I present as a mother? Am I patient? Not always patient. Am I loving? And if I'm not experiencing presence, patience, and that ability to give love fully, then I ask, what is stopping me from showing up in that way? And usually it's because I haven't given myself those things. And see, we are taught in terms of narratives around motherhood to completely sacrifice ourselves. There is what we call sacrifice involved. That word is interesting. Why don't we just say there's no sacrifice? It's all reward. It's rewarding to experience motherhood. It's rewarding to learn new skills. It's rewarding to get to know yourself in this new way. How about that instead of it's sacrificial to be breastfeeding? It's like, how rewarding to experience milk coming out of my breasts. I don't know, like reframe it, right? Instead of sacrifice, make it rewarding. What is rewarding about this process as I learn and navigate motherhood? What am I learning about myself? How am I taking this on as a challenge to become a better person for myself and for my child or children? And so usually when I don't feel present, patient, or loving, it's because I haven't given myself the gift of presence. I haven't been patient with myself in some way, and I'm not loving myself the way I need to be loved. So secondary to those first three tips that I shared, which is letting go of judgment, comparison, and not caring what other people think about you and how you're doing motherhood, is what are three things that we can put into action that is going to help us let go of judgment, comparison, and caring what other people think. And number one for me has been asking for help. Like, that is the hardest thing for me to do, especially as an independent woman. I'm transitioning from becoming an independent woman, which is something that we were sold by society, like, all the women independent show. I'm not a singer, but, who sang that? Was that Destiny's Child or Beyonce? It's like, independent, INDEPENDT, whatever. That's another rapper song. So, like, we all got around this whole idea of becoming independent, and that is great to have independence, of course. But when you are a parent and you're married and you have a child, you have to learn to become interdependent. So now all of a sudden you're transitioning from this independent mindset into becoming interdependent on each other. And that requires you to ask for help, which requires you to be vulnerable. That's a hard thing for boss babes to do, if that's the way you label yourself. I just say boss babe, whether you like that label or not, because what I'm trying to do is just give you an image of like the working mom, the hustler. So asking for help and asking for help from an outsider, whether that's a babysitter, a nanny, if you've got to do the after school program 1 or 2 days a week. What's the big deal? That's okay. Kids require a lot of attention. Activity is great for them. Is not a bad thing for them to be crafting after school or having extra playtime outside on the playground instead of at home being holed up doing nothing if you're in Arizona and it's hot, for example. But my point is, it's okay. It is okay. Your kid's going to turn out okay if you are present, if you are patient, and if you are loving with them. Trust me on this. So asking for help. Number 2, taking me time. So hard for moms. I had a play date the other day, and this was very eye-opening for me, by the way. Mom drops off her daughter, never had met me. I think I may have shared this story on one of my other shows, but it's worth repeating. She drops off her daughter, had never met me, and was like, hey, I'll be back in a couple hours. I'm like, yeah, great. Wow. You cool? Like, I'm okay. I look trustworthy. Awesome. She comes back. We have a conversation, got to know each other. She's awesome. Working mother, like, top-notch, director level, corporate exec. And I'm like, so I'm going on my first girls trip ever. She's like, ever? Yeah, ever. Ever. I know, since getting married. Is that lame or what? That's how little me time I give myself. Like, what in the world? Where did I learn that behavior? Well, we learn through seeing, whether it's our own parents or images we've seen on TV, narratives we've read about. And I said, well, like, how often do you go on girls' trips? Which is something I would consider as me time, right? Or getting a massage or whatever it may be, going to the gym, working out as me time. Actually, I don't even consider going to the gym me time. Let me back up a little here. Working out is not me time, moms. No, what do you mean? That is part of sustaining a healthy lifestyle. You know what I think is the worst thing that we can do as parents? Is becoming a burden. Literally a burden on our children as they become older because we were too selfish to take care of our own health. I think it is so selfish of us as mothers, as fathers, not to care about our physical and mental fitness. Okay, I think physical and mental fitness go hand in hand. Like, if you are not active and you're not eating healthy, like, that is going to affect you up in the head too, and vice versa. So it's the most selfish thing we can do is, like, as our parents age and they have all these ailments, I'm like, dude, like, why aren't you taking care of? I am so annoyed that you won't take care of yourself, because now this is like feeling like it's becoming my problem. You see where I'm going with that? Like, think of your parents, that generation of parents. Like, don't repeat that behavior. Don't become a burden on your adult children someday because you're too selfish not to give yourself me time. So I don't consider working out me time. I consider that as a responsibility that I have for myself as a human. I call that accountable so that I don't become a burden on the system. I don't become a burden on my partner. I don't become a burden on my adult children someday. That is called being responsible for yourself, taking accountability for yourself. Yeah. Anyway, so me time outside of taking care of my physical fitness and my mental fitness is like, I just want to do something for myself. I enjoy shopping. I want to go shopping, or I want to get a massage because I like to relax, or whatever it may be. Number 3 is actually hanging out with like-minded moms. And then also, when I say like-minded, I've got friends who are stay-at-home moms, and I've got friends that are working mothers, and I've got friends that run their own businesses. And I love to kind of just, you know what? We're all so similar. Whether we're working or not, we're all struggling with the same thing. So I don't think it's about labeling yourself as a working mom or a stay-at-home mom, because that's working and working. Different types of work. And I think we all struggle with a lot of similar things. And I think stay-at-home moms are like, man, should I be a working mom? And a working mom is like, man, should I be a stay-at-home mom? So that comes from judgment, judging each other and judging ourselves, like I mentioned earlier. But hanging out with other like-minded moms and just having open conversations. And I hope you've got a group of girlfriends. If not, I would encourage you to seek those friendships out. of other women who are moms and you're like, man, I'm struggling with this. What do you do? Like, what's your technique? What's your strategy? How do you do that? I want to learn from that. So the more we conversate and the more we kind of cherry pick things and try them out for ourselves, the more we're going to kind of discover what type of style of motherhood works for ourselves and our children. So that's my talk for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I just wanted to have a conversation around, this topic of mom guilt, and also asking yourself these two very important questions, like, are your beliefs around motherhood stopping you from pursuing your highest self? Or are you using motherhood as an excuse to stop yourself from becoming your best self? Something to think about. And what I would love to know is, how do you handle it? How do you handle mom guilt? How are you rewriting the narrative around motherhood to help you achieve your highest self? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, as always.